It is 2024 and I'm going to show you 10 different ways you can find resources in your target language. Starting off with the first one, which is going to be ChatGPT. Considering over the last few years, AI systems and particularly ChatGPT has become really popular just in the world in general, but within the world of language learning, they've become really useful tools. And I use specifically ChatGPT whenever I have questions in relation to my languages that I'm trying to learn, whether it be grammar questions, whether it be how to say a certain word, how to translate a sentence, whatever it may be. ChatGPT has essentially replaced a lot of my other programs, such as Google Translate, as a secondary tool to use as to back up and to double check my translations, for example. The good thing with ChatGPT is it has a library of so many different languages. It is hard to find a language that ChatGPT doesn't have knowledge on or is able to translate into. I literally have used ChatGPT to give me sentence examples in languages such as Manx, Welsh, Albanian, ancient Egyptian even, and also Babylonian, as well as a whole bunch of other unique and lesser studied languages. If you are studying a language which is not your stereotypical language, not a mainstream language, not one that is on many, if any, language learning apps, then something like ChatGPT will be a good resource for you. ChatGPT literally can produce language in so many different languages, and it can give you example sentences, it can test you on your knowledge of grammar, it can check for potential mistakes in your text, and there's just so many more things you can do with ChatGPT in order to make it become your language learning AI tutor, essentially. Like, there's so many things it can do, and I would really recommend to use AI just to at least experiment with it to see if it works for you, because for me, I think it works really well, and it's a very convenient thing to have as well as one of my many resources for my languages that I study. Podcasts are a really good way to learn a language. They're a really good way to get listening input, and listening input is a very important thing when it comes to studying and learning a language. And podcasts are just a good way to get that information in, because normally podcasts are going to be a conversation between two or more people talking about whatever it is they want to talk about. So it's going to be genuine conversation between these two or three people, and also it's just a long form content. A lot of podcasts are going to be half an hour to 1 hour or longer. So for example, if you're driving long distance, you can just stick on a podcast and you can just listen away while you drive. That is exactly what I do, and that's how I get so much listening practice in on a day-to-day basis. To find podcasts in the language you're trying to learn, I would suggest using Google Translate to help you find what you're trying to search for in your target language, and then just copy and paste your target language into Spotify search bar. Or you can also use Google search to find maybe the top 10 best podcasts within insert language here, or you can ask ChatGPT for recommendations on 5 or 10 different podcasts within said language that you're trying to learn. And talking of Google, Googling in your target language is a very useful resource. You can literally, again, use Google Translate to help you if you need it, but use Google search to Google in the language that you're trying to learn. You will find a whole bunch of search results in the language you're trying to learn. Normally they're articles. If you wanted to Google search in the target language about music or about knitting or about mechanics or about juggling or about Rubik's cubes or whatever else it may be, you can do that. You can do the search and you can find articles related on those topics that you're trying to learn or you're trying to read about. For example, I like to read articles in Polish or in Spanish about bands that I like to read up about. I like to listen to a lot of music, and so I like to learn about the bands that I listen to, and so I'll just type in something related to that band in the language I'm trying to find articles for, and then I'll just read about the bands that I'm genuinely interested in the language that I'm trying to learn, and therefore I learn vocabulary while reading an enjoyable piece of text because I'm having fun reading and learning about this particular band that I'm interested in. At the same time, I'm learning vocabulary in my target language. Googling in your target language is a very useful resource to have, especially again if you've got a lesser studied language that you're trying to learn and resources may be a little bit more limited. On a similar note to Googling in your target language, you can also YouTube in your target language. To try and keep it simple, create a new account onto YouTube, call it whatever you want, but personally I call it the name of the language I'm trying to learn, and then you just stick to nothing but content in the language you're trying to learn. Let's say you're trying to learn French. Stick to watching only videos in French on your new account, and the YouTube search results will start giving you more French videos and it will start suggesting you things that are of interest to you as well. The YouTube algorithm is a very useful and powerful piece of technology, and if you use it right, you can find a whole bunch of useful content that you can use again as resources, as study material. And personally, I prefer YouTube over the next thing that I'm going to mention, which is watching series on Netflix. The only thing I have about watching series on Netflix is that language can be quite difficult and it can be quite formal sometimes, and the subtitles is not always going to be matched up to what the people are saying. However, if you just enjoy watching series more than YouTube, if you enjoy watching films, and also if you're at a decently high level in your language, you can look on Netflix for TV series and films in the language you're trying to learn and just watch the film or TV series. I've done this myself at various different levels in my languages, and it's a very fun thing to do. Like I say, personally I prefer YouTube, but you can use this method on Netflix as well. Netflix has a whole bunch of different series in like 20 or 30 different languages or something. Personally, I like to use Netflix when I'm just winding down at the end of the day. I'll just stick on a series in Spanish and I'll just watch that until I get tired enough to go to sleep. See if your favorite book has been translated in the language that you are wanting to learn. Harry Potter is a very popular series that has been translated in like 70 different languages, and I've got the entire series here in Polish. I also have the entire series in Spanish as well, somewhere else in my room. But I also have this book, which I have the English equivalent of first, and then I found the Spanish version, and I just enjoyed the book so much that I decided to get the Spanish one. And there are other books as well that I haven't been able to get around to getting, but there are a whole bunch of books that are in English originally, but they've been translated into Spanish and French and Italian and German and all these other languages, which may be of use for you, especially if you enjoy reading books. I think personally it's one of the best ways to learn language. One of the best ways to acquire vocabulary is to read a book which you can understand the majority of, and if you've already read the English equivalent of the book, then reading the book in your target language is going to be very beneficial to you as a learning resource. Language learning apps. Do your own research, see which ones are maybe better for you than others. You don't just have to stick with Duolingo and memorize, especially if you're learning those more popular languages such as the Romance languages or the Germanic languages. A lot of apps, almost every single language learning app out there will have those particular ones. Experiment with different apps, see which ones work for you, see which ones don't work for you. Watch YouTube videos. I have so far 4 different language learning apps that I have reviewed. I am working my way through reviewing more language learning apps. It just takes a long time to make those particular videos. But do your research and see which ones may be better for you than others. But do know one thing, that no one single language learning app will be your golden ticket. Regardless of which app you use, you still have to supplement it with a whole bunch of other study. But language learning apps certainly can fill in a big gap of your time, whether you're out and about and you just need something quick on your mobile phone, or whether you just want something quick and easy while you're at home and you're too tired to properly study. Language learning apps are certainly a really good substitute, but no one language learning app is going to get you to fluency, and that is the honest truth. I've tried so many different language learning apps and none of them will get you to what most people consider fluent, but some will get you to a really good level. In my opinion, the best language learning app out there is Link, because you literally use it to read and there's a whole bunch of material on there and you can import articles and whatever. I think Link is a really good language learning app. I've done a review on Link if you'd like to watch that video, probably up on screen somewhere in the corner, but that's just my personal choice on the app itself. Maybe for you, you don't enjoy reading and so it won't be as useful for you. Find people to connect with, whether it's someone on an app like HelloTalk or Tandem, which are apps where you can use to message people, and if you have the confidence to do so, you can also send voice notes, you can do FaceTiming kind of stuff on there to actually talk with people, potentially meet people in real life if you live in an area where there's people that speak your target language. If you work with someone who speaks your target language, there's a whole bunch of different options. You can go on Facebook and join groups and then message the group and be like, does anyone want to do like 1 time a week meet up and just do a language exchange? Whatever it may be, try and find someone who can speak your language and just get some speaking practice in there, because you will never ever learn to speak a language without opening your mouth and speaking. And so by having someone there, that will be a really good resource for you to actually start learning the language and getting those mouth muscles moving in order for you to actually get used to actually speaking a language. You can read a language fluently and still struggle a whole bunch on being able to speak a language, and trust me, that is a real thing that a lot of people struggle with, and I think it's because a lot of people don't bother to take the time to actually try and speak, and you need a whole bunch of speaking practice to be able to speak a language well. So I would suggest to start speaking the language as soon as you're ready to start speaking the language. Even at a very rudimentary level, start speaking, try and find someone to connect with. Once you've got that connection, that will make the language a lot more real and a lot more fun and engaging for you. When I was in school, the teachers always would tell me that Google Translate was one of the worst things you could use. It always translated badly, but in my opinion, over the years, Google Translate has improved a lot. And considering that when I was in school, that was over 10 years ago now, I think Google Translate nowadays is way better, and I would ignore teachers if they still say that now and say that Google Translate is a really good, useful tool to look up sentences and words in your target language. What I will say is some languages are better than others on Google Translate, and what I will also say is that you always want to use Google Translate in sentences, and that's because you want to make sure that you translate a word in context and not on its own. If you're trying to translate the word for cricket, are you on about the sport or the insect? So make sure you put he is playing cricket or he is eating a cricket or something like that, just to make sure you get the right translation for the word you're trying to find. The worst thing is when you're trying to speak a language and you use the wrong word and then the person's confused because you've used the cricket insect for talking about the cricket sport. So make sure you Google Translate in context, in full sentences, just to be sure that you've got the right translation. And my last tip for finding resources in your target language is to look on social media. I follow social media influencers in Polish, Spanish, Japanese, and French on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, and other social media platforms that I may use. I always make sure I follow them so that when I'm scrolling Instagram and I'm just being lazy, that I still see the language in an everyday situation. They'll put up a post and the post will be in Polish, and therefore I will read that Polish and try and make sense of what the Polish is being said. It's normally a very short caption, so it's going to be easier to break down. And if you really struggle, there's normally a translate into English option to then see what is being said. You can then translate back into the original language and then try and reread it and try and make sense of those words. So that is everything I would suggest for you to find resources in your target language. This is not an exhaustive list, but this is a list that I would recommend myself. If there are any other ways that you can find resources in your target language, be it a popular target language or a really small, unique, lesser studied target language like Manx, Welsh, Cornish, Greenlandic, Latin, whatever it may be, let me know in the comment section down below. I'd be interested to see what methods you guys use in order to find resources in your target language. I hope you have found some use out of this video. If you have, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. I release videos on language learning. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. And with all that out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch all of you in the next one for another video. Thank you and peace out.